And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a Euro game that's got a train theme, but is more of a worker placement style game when it comes down to how you play. And that game is going to be Snowdonia by Tony Boydell, who is, the designer of Paperclip Rails and various other games. But this time he's got the train theme. We're looking at worker placement. You're going to be placing workers out to collect different resources. You're going to be excavating routes to build track on, and building buildings within different stations. So real quick, we'll see what you get inside of this box and how the game plays, and then we'll come back here and we'll get my final opinions on Snowdonia. So here you can see the setup for a 3-player game of Snowdonia. Now each player starts with a surveyor in the first station, which is represented by land bears here on the board. And you can see each player has one of their pawns there. They each will have a pawn in the pub, and then each player is going to have 2 pawns that are going to be their workers that they'll start with in the game. Along the outside of the board here, you're going to see several different types of cards. You'll see these cards here that have a shovel on it and some numbers. These are excavation sites. These are where you're going to be trying to get this rubble off of here and then later lay track. The cards interspersed between them, so you'll see there are some excavation cards, and then there are station cards, which have several different types of spots on them. They have excavation spots, which are represented by a shovel again and some more brown cubes, and then they have spots where you can build parts of that station using stones. This costs 4 stone, 3 stone, 2 stone, 1 stone. But you can only build on these stations once the areas leading up to them have been excavated. So right now, none of the stations are open for being built on. And there'll be more stations later with spaces to build using steel bars or stone, and spots to excavate on them, where you'll get victory points for excavating and or building those buildings. Now, on the board here you'll see several different things. One is going to be a supply of pieces. You have iron, you have stone, and you have coal. Off of the board you're going to have these steel tracks, you're going to have some discs for the weather, and then you have this awesome first player marker in the form of a train. On the board in other spots you have some different things. There's a track for weather. Now weather will just change some minor details about the game. It's going to change the excavation rate, so based on better weather you'll be able to excavate better. Worst weather you won't excavate as well, and in certain weather, foggy weather, you won't be able to excavate at all. And the same thing goes for laying track. The better the weather, the more track you can lay. So that's the weather track here, and these are the tracks that are modified by that weather track: excavation rate and track laying. And as they go up, when you take those actions, they'll be better. This spot up here is where you're going to be placing all of your workers. So you'll see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different actions. Those different actions have various amounts of spots on them to be placed on. So 3 here, 2 there, 1, 2, 2, 2, and infinite on this side over here. Down here you're going to see a track of events that will happen as you pull cubes from this bag to restock the supply of cubes that are available. And then down in the corner over here you're going to see some contract cards, which are cards that will give you various benefits, which are written in the center of them, but will also provide you ways to get victory points at the end of the game. For example, this one says, for four excavation cubes that you place on here, 4 excavation sites, I should say, cubes, you're going to be able to get 5 points. Or this one, if you can take a marker off of 2 different areas where you've built track, you'll get 15 points. So there's various things that will earn you points. Now, the way the game is going to work is that each player is going to take turns placing workers out onto these various actions, and the actions are as follows. This first one here will let you take 3 cubes from this area on positions 1, 2, and 3, which get resolved in order. So you would place your worker out there, whoever the first player is, or if they want to take that action. And when we resolve these, which will be after all of the placements and in order left to right, they'd be able to take 3 cubes, being 3 iron or 3 stone, or 1 coal and any combination of the other ones. So you can always combine the stone and stone and iron, but if you take a coal, you only get 2 of the other ones. So coal is kind of rare, and you can only take 1 of them when you take it. And that's all 3 of these actions, but the bottom one, if you take the last spot on there, you get the first player marker. The next one here is going to let you excavate. Excavating is going to be taking the rubble off of these cards over here. And when you do that, you're going to excavate equal to the current excavation rate plus any bonuses you might have from specific cards that you can use. Some of these cards will give you a bonus to excavation. For example, this one here says whatever you take the excavate action this round, take double the number of rubble. So you could use that card, and that's once per game, in order to do the action extra times. So you're going to take from the leftmost of these cards, and you'll start pulling these off of here, and once that one's clear, you'll pull off of here, And once those are clear, you'll start pulling off of the stations. And if you ever finish one of these excavation sites on a station, you're going to place one of your ownership cubes on that spot, and that will count for points at the end of the game, as well as for these marker bonuses over here that you get. So you'll start clearing these, and you'll want to try and get it so that you can clear all of these off of one of these spaces without leaving it open for someone else to clear it before you. So that's excavation. This will shift as the game goes on and can be modified by these cards, as well as by trains that you can buy, and I'll cover that shortly. The third action is going to be trading cubes in, iron for steel, or you can trade in 2 rubble for a stone, and you can do that up to 3 times. So that's that action. Fourth action here is going to be laying track, and you lay track equal to the current lay track rate, which right now is 1. So if you were to take that action, you would be able to lay 1 track. But in order to lay track, there have to be cleared excavation sites. So once this area is cleared, you could take the lay track action in order to flip this card over, and you would put your little ownership marker on there. You would have to pay 1 steel bar, which is your track, from your supply, and you'd put an ownership marker on there. It would be worth 5 points at the end of the game, plus any bonuses you have from your contract cards. So that's why you want to try and clear areas in order to lay track on them in order to get victory points, as well as having the rubble to trade into stone. The next action here is going to be either build areas on these cards, and you can only build on them once you've got all the excavation sites cleared up to them, or buy a train. But you can only buy a train once the buy train action has happened, which won't be in the first round of the game. Now, when you build one of these areas, like I said, these would have to be cleared. Not the ones on the site, though, and you would be able to pay 4 stone, 3 stone, 2 stone, or 1 stone to put one of your ownership markers on this spot here. And when you do that, you're going to get points at the end of the game equal to the number of points down in the right-hand corner, plus you can take them off to fulfill your contract cards, as with everything else. When you buy a train, once this event has happened, you have to pay steel bars for them, and there are different trains down at the bottom here. Each of these trains has a cost, so 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, and 1 steel bars. Some of them will come with coal. These 3 come with 1. That one also comes with 1, and this one with 2. But this train comes with none. And each of the trains gives you an ability. 1, at the start of each round, before you place your first worker, you can pay a coal, or maybe 2 coal, depending on the train, in order to take your last worker from the pub. So you can get more workers that way. In addition, the trains will provide you with special abilities that modify some of the actions. For example, train number 7 here lets you always lay track at 1 higher if you take the lay track rate. Or train number 4 gives you 9 points at the end of the game. So you'll see that getting a train can be beneficial depending on what you're trying to do. And you can always switch trains in the middle of the game. If you start out with an ability and you later want to get the 9 points, you can return your train, buy a new train, and get the 9 points for the end of the game. So that's action E here. Now action F is going to be taking these contract cards, and you get to pick up 1 contract card based on what's out, and they won't restock immediately. So there's 3 available, only 2 of them will disappear per round. But you can take them, and as I said, they have different abilities on them and different endpoint scoring. So this one is place 4 cubes on here for 5 points at the end of the game, and that's rubble cubes. At the bottom it says, after all other players have build actions, you may take a build action as if you had placed a marker on there this round. So that card lets you get a free build action after everyone else has taken one in E. If no one else takes one, you can't have one. This one modifies how much rubble you can take, or this one here says immediately draw 3 cubes from the bag, and for each cube you draw this way, you always return the event cubes. There are event cubes, and I'll show you that shortly, but you get to keep the other ones. So you can get some contracts to help you out through the game with specific actions and score you points at the end of the game by fulfilling them. The last space here is to move your surveyor from the first track to the first station to the next station. The reason you do this is that the further along your surveyor is in the game, the more points you'll get. So if he ends on this station, you get 1 point. If he ends here, you get 2, 4, 7, 11, 15, and 21 points if you manage to get him all the way to the end. And there's a contract card that actually gives you a benefit for getting him further along. Anyhow, after everyone's placed your workers, you resolve them left to right, building, excavating, laying track, getting contract cards, buying trains, trading cubes in, taking more cubes, whatever the case may be, until everyone's taken all of their actions. At that point, you're going to restock the contract cards, and if this card is here, it's going to flip into this space. Everything else will slide, and you'll look at the top card here. So you'll see that this one is gray. We're going to shift all of these this direction, and we're going to modify the weather appropriately. So gray right now means that no one on the next turn can either excavate or lay track. So none of that next turn. And a gray disc is going to go on this furthest spot down here, meaning that in 2 turns we'll have gray again. But next turn it's going to be good weather, and the numbers on the tracks will go up. So this will shift 1 up. Actually, this will shift 2 up, and this will shift 1 up, making the excavation rates and the track laying rates better next turn. And this card would then get laid out as the next available contract. After we've done that, we're going to restock these areas here, and we'll see here it says how many cubes we restock. In a 3-player game, it's going to be 9 cubes, and these would be drawn from this bag. Now, obviously all of these cubes wouldn't be here because several players would have taken actions from this area to remove the cubes from the game, and there's always a low supply of cubes, especially coal and stone, which you're trying to get in order to do various things like get extra workers. You're going to need coal in order to buy your extra workers. Sometimes it costs 1 if you have a train, sometimes it costs 2 if you have a train, but you'll want to have the coal each round to spend in order to get more workers, so coal is going to be a hot commodity. Anyhow, you would draw 9 cubes from this bag, and when you draw cubes from this bag, you're going to place them out into the appropriate areas, but you're eventually going to draw cubes that you are going to have to place out that will trigger events. So we're going to draw 9 cubes. We have a coal, we have a stone, we have an iron. Hey, we have an event cube. Right now, we'd place that on the event number 1, and that's going to cause an excavation to happen that happens from the game. So the game would automatically excavate at the current excavation rate, which is 4, and it would pull the first 4 cubes off of this area here, and basically those are now unavailable for anyone else to take from the game. So they get pulled off, and essentially it just kind of furthers the game along a little bit. The next event would be the event that allows people to buy trains. So once that event happens, the players would be able to buy trains on their next possible turns by taking the build or buy action. This one is going to lay track immediately on the first number of spaces equal to the track thing. So for example, if this event were to happen, and we place the cube out there, they'd come out in order, we would excavate 2, and they don't have to be cleared in order to be excavated. So this is going to get flipped, and this is going to get flipped, and now no one can get the bonuses from those by having owned the excavation there. No one gets to lay the track, so it automatically excavates them and lays the track on them. No one gets the points. The next spot here, the building spot, basically shuts down an entire station. It's going to place out a marker on here, and no one can build on that station from that point on. If people have already built on there, that's fine, but all of the rubble cubes would come off, it would shut down the station, and you're going to have to start building on the next station out once it's cleared up to. The rest of the events are pretty straightforward. It's another excavation. This one here forces you to pay a steel bar, or to return your train, or to play a train. There's a contract card out here that lets you avoid this event. Another track laying, another building, some more excavation, and another track laying. And basically, each time you hit one of these areas here, 3 of the event cubes from the track will go back in the bag to replenish the supply of event cubes. And at the end of the game, you're going to cycle between these last 3 because it will take 3 out, put 3 back in, and they come off of the track as you go. So the last 3 spots will empty up, and then you'll refill them with event cubes from the bag. After you've done the restocking and the events, you're going to move on and repeat rounds until the game ends. Now the way the game is going to end is once track has been laid on the last spot here, leading up to the last station, the game will end. And at the end of the round, of course. And at the end of the game, you're going to score points for various things. You're going to score points for completed sites on the station cards, so for each of the areas that you build or excavate on these station cards. You're going to score points for your completed tracks on these excavated areas. You're going to get your points for your contract cards, as I mentioned previously. 9 points if you happen to have the specific train, and you're going to get points for the location of your surveyor. And whoever has the most points by best accomplishing action taking, excavating, building track, buying contracts, or taking contracts and building areas is going to be the winner. Well, there you have it. That is Snowdonia from Tony Boydell. Plays anywhere from 1 to 5. Now, I didn't show you the 1-player variant, the solo variant. I didn't show you 2 or 3 or 2 or 4 or 5, but the scaling is really not all that, extensive. All it does is remove some cards or add some cards, change some of the actions slightly on various other things. Now, in addition to that, there's also another variant on which players start from either side of the board. There's 2 different starting areas, and you kind of build towards the center. It changes several things. There are less events. You have to move your surveyor in order to build, but you don't have to excavate first. But all in all, the mechanics of the game are pretty similar in either variant. Now, the game is pretty light. It's a lighter game, but with that, I think it has some redeeming qualities, although being light's not necessarily bad. But for a light game, it has a surprising amount of tension in the amount of resources that are available. There's very little, for example, coal available, and each player wants to get that coal because getting coal will allow them to pay the cost on their train to get their extra worker from the pub in order to have more workers during the worker placement section. So there's going to be a little bit of a fight over that coal to try and have that advantage, and if you can't get it, you're going to be planning on future turns on how to do so. So all in all, I think the game is pretty interesting for a lighter game. It's easy to learn, it doesn't take very long to play, but still gives you a good tense feel for a shorter game. So if that sounds good to you, check out Snowdonia.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.